Finally, a win for photographers. If you've ever wanted to film in national parks or federal public lands, but were held back by permit fees and bureaucracy, I have some great news. The recently signed Explore Act has cut the red tape and made things so much friendlier. If you haven't already heard, back in January, the Explore Act passed, which directly impacts anyone that wants to film or take photos on public lands. That's national parks, national forests, BLM land, etc. It stands for Expanding Public Lands Outdoor Recreation Experiences, and was a big piece of federal legislation signed into law on January 4th. I've been hoping this would happen for years, and it finally did. In this video, I'm going to break down what this means for content creators, covering key provisions, filming rules, and best practices. My name is Mark Bergering, and I share gear reviews, practical tips on videography and photography here on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Let's start with an overview. The Explore Act covers not only filming and photography, but a bunch of other outdoor activities on public lands, including national parks. The most relevant section for content creators is Section 125, which specifically addresses small-scale filming and photography projects. Let's dive into the details. The biggest change: if your group has fewer than 6 people, you no longer need a permit or have to pay any fees, even for monetized content or commercial productions. Whether you're vlogging, shooting a travel documentary, photographing an engagement session, or filming for a commercial client, you're good to go. Additionally, if you're filming at an authorized event, like a wedding, there's no extra permits required. The wedding couple may still need a permit depending on the location, but you as the photographer or videographer don't need one. This is a game changer because, as you know, some of these small-scale jobs don't have the budget to cover our time and hassle for getting permits. In the past, all the national parks had different permit processes, and it was a headache to figure out the differences and regulations for us and our clients. That would make it cost and time prohibitive to shoot in these beautiful locations. Now, less hassle, more shooting. Let's talk about some key provisions. Even though small-scale filming is allowed, here are 6 important rules to follow. Number 1, no disruption. You can't interfere with other visitors' experiences. You can't try to tell other people where to be or where not to be. Your filming needs are no more important than someone else's experience in these locations. It helps if you pick less populated locations, which we'll talk about in rule number 4. Or you can time things around less busy seasons, days, or times a day. Weekdays in non-tourist seasons are the best. Number 2, no damage. Filming cannot harm cultural or natural resources. If we want to keep filming access on public lands, we need to respect the cultural and natural resources. This is especially important for wildlife and fragile historical environments. I'm not going to lecture you on Leave No Trace, but if there's something that you're not familiar with yet, it's time to learn. I can't tell you how many times I've seen photographers chasing wildlife with their clients to get a picture with the elk or walking all over the fragile tundra alpine environment. In short, you have to follow the same rules set out for any other visitor. Now that the rules are in our favor, let's respect them. Number 3, minimal equipment. Only handheld or small-scale equipment is permitted. You'll want to look through your camera gear needs and see how you can scale back to be lightweight, nimble, and unobtrusive. This is typically how I like to work anyway, especially in the outdoors, so I don't have any complaints about this. But if you're used to using more equipment, it's time to get creative. The key here is handheld equipment. So you have to have someone hold your light stand instead of setting it on the ground. Tripods are considered handheld. They're not as offensive, and you'll likely see a line of them at Tunnel View in Yosemite come sunset. If you need any gear tips, let me know in the comments below. Number 4, location restrictions. Avoid high visitation areas and restricted areas. I already mentioned the importance of choosing less populated locations. It's time to be creative, and when you're not worried about other people in your shot, you can be more creative. There's a ton of great locations adjacent to the high visitation ones. You might have to spend some time scouting and find that alternative viewpoint. When it comes to high visitation places, I think it's reasonable to walk down to the Yosemite Falls Trail with a gimbal, but don't expect to set up light stands on the walkway around Old Faithful. Number 5, group size matters. 6 people or less, you're good to go. If you have 6 to 8 people, you may need a quick, free authorization. Larger groups and setups will still require a permit. I don't think this requires more explanation. For us, it usually looks like one of us shooting photos, the other shooting video, plus 2 to 4 models. If a bigger group is needed, the permitting process gets more complicated. Number 6, federal land only. This rule applies only to federal land, so state and county property will still have their own regulations, permits, processes, etc. So you'll need to investigate what those are in your area and make sure you follow those rules. Some of the locations near us have annual permits, whereas others are more complicated, requiring us to get one for every shoot. But at least those rules and regulations are relatively easy to find. Those are the 6 rules to know. I think these rules are super generous, and they allow for a lot of freedom compared to my past interactions with the national park, national forest, and BLM. The rules are also in alignment with my ethics and style, and I don't think they really prevent or restrict me from making great content. One other big consideration is drone use and compliance. A major rule in this new law is that drones remain prohibited in national parks and wilderness areas. As much as I'd like to fly my drone in some parks, I completely agree that we shouldn't have drones flying around elk in Rocky Mountain National Park. There are some places where the hum of a drone is just not acceptable. People go into the wilderness to get away from the modern world, and I hope that people understand and respect that. So let's put the drone away and talk about the benefits of this new law for small creators. This new law is a huge win for small business, like myself and other content creators. It removes unnecessary red tape and allows YouTubers, social media creators, etc. to know the rules. Prior to the Explorer Act, it was a lot of flip-flop and a confusion. Permits were expensive, they had unrealistic timelines, and there were so many complaints. I love that they made things so simple and so everyone can know the rules and follow them instead of some folks bending the rules and hoping they wouldn't get fined. I find it rare that the government simplifies and streamlines things for people, so I'm grateful for this new policy. In the past, I've spent hours filling out pages of permits for permit applications only to have them denied or just take so long that I had to find a new location for a shoot. I remember filing a permit for a ski film in a remote backcountry area for the National Forest Service, something that I paid like $300 for a single day of filming. We literally didn't see a single other person the entire day. Aside from the fee, the effort and time required to research, submit, and pay the permit fee was substantial. It certainly was tempting to just ignore the red tape and hope for the best, but when you're out on a professional shoot for a client, you can't just ignore the rules. I'm so glad I won't have to have this headache in the future. And don't even get me started on my permit application with the BLM. Next, let's talk some common sense guidelines for filming. Even with these relaxed rules, respect and responsibility are key. If we can all agree to follow the rules, hopefully they'll remain in place. As a reminder, here are a few best practices. Don't set up large production sets or staged activities. Avoid blocking public access and follow all conservation rules to help protect those beautiful spaces. Check out lnt.org if you need some more info. Now with the Explorer Act, there's never been a better time to film in national parks and on public lands. If you have any questions, hit me up with a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Next up, if you need some tips on what camera gear to get for your next video, check out this video on the best cameras under $1,000. I'll see you over there.